have broad range. You are a doctorate, you have a role at one of the most prestigious institutions of higher learning in the US, Army Ranger, Inc. 5000 company.
Now, of course, as parents, we put a number of guidelines in place, parameters she needed to follow, because this was a privilege to have this cell phone, and we wanted her to act accordingly. But ultimately, she got a cell phone. And early on, my wife and I were not used to texting that much. It wasn't something we were doing. And my wife texted our daughter a question about when she needed to be picked up. And our daughter responded with this. What does that stand for, folks? Exactly. My wife saw IDK, and she wrote back, "What does that mean?" And our daughter said, exactly. And my wife said, "If you don't know what it means, you shouldn't be texting it." So the point is that words have meaning. So I want to share some words with you, but before I go into it, I want to share the meaning behind some of these things. If we're not clear on what they mean, sometimes we walk away and not fully understand how to implement them. So I'm going to put a word on the screen right now. And when this word comes up, I want you to think about the first word or phrase or something that comes to your mind when you see this word. Ready? All right. By show of hands, how many of you thought of a specific dog? All right, take a look around. Lots of people thought of a specific dog. Was that like your dog? What's your dog's name? Winston. Okay, you thought of Winston. Did anybody think of just a big dog in general? Just like a big dog. Anybody? Anybody think small dog? Okay, a few hands. Anybody think like dog toys, dog food, dog leashes? Anybody that? Anybody think cat? Look around. As a leader, if you think, I've told people this 10 times, why aren't they getting it? It's because people think cat when you're saying dog. So I want to share with you a little model that we can use. And I'm just going to define each term very quickly because it's really critical. So the first thing is a catalyst. That's something that often jump starts a change or a disruption that you choose to take on. So technology, that could be a catalyst in your life. A new opportunity can be a catalyst in your life. Coming to a conference, learning about Empower 225, that could be a catalyst in your life that makes you decide, hey, I might do something different at this point. Now, oftentimes when we have that catalyst, that kind of ignition, if you will, the next thing that starts to shift is our mindset.
So it's not just for somebody who's like has the job or title at work, they're the leader. It's for all of us who want to lead ourselves, want to influence other people, want to eventually maybe aspire to lead a team, and even for people who are in leadership roles. It's the idea about how do I think like a leader? How do I act like a leader? How do I, begin to move in the right direction wherever I'm at on my journey?
Now, discipline unto itself is important, but it's not necessarily enough because you have to have discipline in your action and discipline in your thinking. So from that perspective, over the years as I've gone out and worked with clients, and I started to think about a map of the US, and I thought, where have I worked with clients? And I darn near cover every decent sized city in America and some other ones as well. But I would say that everywhere I've been to over the years, I have seen people that are really excellent at what they do. And in watching what they do and how they think about things, I noticed that they follow 5 fairly consistent steps. Some of the steps are more thinking related, some are more action related, but there's these 5 steps. So suffice it to say, I'm going to make an argument that for the most part, these steps happen in America. Is that fair? In the US. And many of you probably apply some of these steps. I've had a chance over the years to work in Central America. I've seen the steps there. I've seen them in Canada. I've seen them in Europe. I've seen them firsthand when I've been over in China, down in Malaysia and Vietnam. I've seen it in lots of different places. And it's regardless of industry. It's regardless of age, it's regardless of geography. There's just 5 things that we tend to do really well if we're excellent performers. And really being interested in that, I started to study what do excellent performers do. The first thing they do is they get clear on their purpose. That's what that question's about. Why are we here? What are we trying to do? What's my purpose in my role? What's my purpose of my team? What's the purpose of our organization? Getting clear on that. Perspective is an important thing. Really being clear. You mentioned about going out and listening to your customers. This is about who do we serve and what matters to them and how well are they doing at what matters to them and what can we do to impact that or help them out along the way. And then things about priorities. We can't tackle everything, right? We have to figure out what we're actually going to go after right now. What are our goals? What's our plan or plans to make those things happen? And then lastly, how well are we going to perform against these things? Because the last one is kind of where the rubber meets the road. It's the ability to say, okay, game on now. And how are we going to build trust with each other? Well, hopefully we started a while ago. Trust is something like planting a tree. When's the best day to plant a tree? Yesterday. When's the second best day? Today. When's the best day to start working on trusting relationship with somebody? Probably yesterday. Second best is today.
Welcome to the Leadership Lab podcast. My name is Patrick Leddin, and I have the honor of being your host in the Leadership Lab. This podcast is for leaders, and that means this podcast is for you. Because whether you're leading your career, a team, or an entire organization, you are a leader. I truly believe that we can learn lessons about leadership from a wide range of sources, and it's with this in mind that I invite guests to join me in the Leadership Lab. I've got a treat for you today. We're joined in the Leadership Lab by Whitney Johnson. She's an executive coach, the CEO of a company, a best-selling author known for writing the books Disrupt Yourself, Build an A-Team, and most recently the book Smart Growth. Whitney Johnson, thanks so much, my friend, for joining me today in the Leadership Lab.
Thank you for having me, Patrick.
Hey, Chris Voss, thanks for joining me today in the Leadership Lab. Global best-selling author James Patterson, welcome to the Leadership Lab. Stephen M.R. Covey, author of The Speed of Trust. Dory Clark, retired General Stan McChrystal. Atlanta Braves shortstop Dansby Swanson. Dolly Chugh, hey Rita McGrath. Former HBR editor and best-selling author Karen Dillon. Robert Cialdini. Eddie Turner, best-selling author and marketer extraordinaire Seth Godin. Tasha Urich, former NFL player Desmond Clark. Rock climber extraordinaire Tommy Caldwell. Welcome to the Leadership Lab.
Working with Patrick really showed me the kind of leader I want to be. Someone who's confident, influential, and motivated, but also compassionate, relatable, and kind. It showed me the difference leaders can make just by listening to those around them and the impact they can have by investing in others.
So I'm going to encourage you, when you think about this, is there an opportunity for you to disrupt yourself, disrupt relationships, disrupt your company, disrupt your industry, disrupt society? The world needs you to do it. But in order to do it, you have to really be clear on how much of a disruptor are you? So I'm going to invite you to consider a bit of a head-to-toe analysis as yourself as a disruptor. And for each item I call out or share with you, there's always 2 sides to every coin. So I'll talk to you about disruptive brains, how you think about things, and I'll share you a second thing about disruptive brains. And I'll ask you to kind of assess for yourself how you're doing in each area. When we finish this, I want you to be able to turn to the person to your left or right when I give you a moment and share with them the one thing, this anatomy that I go through, that you feel is like your strongest suit. What is the one you're really good at? And if you chose to be disruptive, you can really lean into this thing. So as I go through these items, I want you to just keep track of what's the thing you do the best. So again, head to toe analysis. First one, brains. To disrupt some things, you got to think deeply about some things. So the question becomes, how good are you at actually thinking about things? Are you so busy doing that you rarely spend time to think? Or do you surround yourself with people who are thinking deeply about something? The second thing is not only do you have to think deeply, but you also have to do it often. It has to become a practice. Earlier when Scott was talking about insights from your customers, what's an insight? An insight typically is something that few people know. Most of us don't know it because we haven't done the hard work to figure it out, and it's valuable. That's an insight. If you do like the typical 2x2 block, this is the one that we don't know it and it's valuable. That's an insight. It takes time to think about those things and find them, and you have to make it a habit. In many organizations, we do not value thinking. We value action. If I was working for you and I came around and I was working in my place, if I was working for you and you came around the office and I was sitting there with my feet up thinking, and you're like, what are you doing, Patrick? And I say, I'm thinking. If your natural reaction is, stop doing that, get back to work, you're missing the point.